And now we're going to find out what happened to this anonymous landlord.
Okay, so my landlord's trying to increase my rent by 25%. So I'm trying to get in touch with him. The problem is, I don't know who I'm supposed to contact. I don't have a number for the person who owns my building, and the middleman, whose name isn't on the lease, just claims he's speaking on behalf of the landlord. I don't have any choice but to write back to this guy and try to negotiate.
2 months later.
Okay, well, that didn't work. 2 months later, me and my wife are being forced to move out of our home.
Jesus.
How did this happen? Well, when our anonymous landlord raised our rent by 25%, they had complete power over the situation. And the whole experience made me want to find out one thing. Why don't tenants have any leverage in negotiating their rent? That's the mystery we're going to unpack today. This is the classroom for More Perfect Union, and today we're talking about your landlord. Think about leverage like a tug of war between working people and bosses. In a workplace, workers may have much less power than management, but they still have a few ways to add pressure to their bosses. They can collectively bargain with their fellow employees, go on strike, or individually leverage other job offers from competitors. But as a tenant, there's not a lot of obvious leverage to negotiate or push back against what your landlord wants to do. Tenants are getting squeezed.
Sure.
But the reasons why rents are so high aren't what landlords claim they are. We dug into it, and we were shocked by some of the things your landlord could be getting away with. In the process, we talked to some tenants who are going through situations far worse than my own.
So I'm not sure what is going to happen here. One person can be greedy, of course, but if every landlord who's ever lived is pretty consistently greedy, then I think the solution has to be more than being like calling them greedy. We need to be able to just build more housing. Rents are high because supply is so low. And that's probably a fixture of the government, like making it so you can't build, or not in my backyard, people lobbying the government so nothing gets built. Like, I think zoning laws are way more to the problem than the greed of landlords. Because at every stage of every business, landlord or buying fucking a phone or buying sandals or going to a barbershop, at every stage, there's greed in all of these interactions. And the reason people don't charge more is because they would lose to someone else. And landlords don't have that because there's no supply and there's a lot of people that need to live.
I learned about 2 bills in New York State that would make the tenant-landlord relationship a little more equal and serve as good models for the rest of the country. When I told my coworkers about my experience, they immediately started pinging me tons of research about.
For example, right now, there's a bunch of people who bought houses to use as Airbnb rentals during the boom of 2021 and 2022. They took out huge loans, they bought tons of houses, and they charged pretty high prices to cover all of the debt they took out to buy those houses. And as of right now, a lot of those places are starting to go bust, because demand has evaporated. People aren't reaching out to book fucking 2-week Airbnb stays anymore, and they're not paying those prices. And so rapidly, Airbnb prices are falling. They're falling. People are putting these houses back on the market. And it is obviously fun to see people who speculated and bought these homes from families get owned a little bit. In general, that's fun. It's just an obvious example of like when the demand isn't there, the price will shrink. Whether or not these people are greedy, but they're lowering the prices and doing less minimum stays and all that because they have to. And I always like rules, whether the person is greedy or not, they just have to offer a competitive price. That's good. I don't like an environment where the solution is only like, let's really try to shame the greedy ones so they have to hide it or like be a faceless corporation where they have to do it because it's in their best interest.
Rent laws and legal loopholes. So I asked them to help me out on this journey. And the first thing I learned about was the magical world of anonymity. My wife and I were like getting nervous because our 2-year lease was coming up. And then we finally got an email. It was from a random guy named Martin Iden. He wasn't my landlord. I've actually never met my landlord. We pay our rent to an LLC that just has our building's address on it. And there was a Zelle associated with a Gmail. And then because it was a Gmail, I was able to find one name, which was Eric Weiser.
So I have the incorporation registrations for the LLC that you were paying your rent to right here. There's no Eric Weiser anywhere on here. The LLC that you were paying your rent to is owned by some law firm in Manhattan. You
That's
look them up, they're the
crazy.
registered agent of thousands of LLCs.
Okay, so now I had 3 names, right? There's Martin. He's the middleman that emailed me initially. This is him right here, the man literally in the middle. I found this video because he and I share something in common. We both make video content. This is just from his YouTube channel. And funny enough, in one of his videos, he's hanging out with this guy. That's Michael, who is a partner at the law firm that Sean just mentioned. That's the second name I have now. But I still know nothing about the third name, Eric, who I've been paying my rent to this whole time. And I'm getting the feeling that that was intentional. But I'm far from the only tenant in this sort of situation. This is Dorca Reynoso, who lives in Inwood, Manhattan.
In 2014, I received a rent increase of 100% in one shot. I was just in disbelief, so I reached out to an attorney. He, briefly looked at my lease and he's like, oh, no, you're a market rate, it's a co-op, so you really have no recourse. And
did you know at that point who your landlord was? Did you have a name? Or?
It was hard to find. We actually had to pull the foil for the property in order to find his name because they keep burying their names into different
they hide it.
LLCs. They transfer from one name to another to hide who they are.
Like an LLC with a corporate agent who's owned by a different LLC. And there's like this fucking chain. You can't get to a human name. It's fucked up.
LLC stands for Limited Liability Company. And the problem is right in the name of it, limited liability. People who form LLCs for their businesses have limited liability for what the business does. That means that they're not accountable for when the business screws people over. So that's why you have states like Wyoming and Delaware where so many companies are headquartered because they have the laws that give LLCs the fewest regulations and the most rights.
New York has buildings like that too, like this one, 199 Lee Avenue, which houses thousands of companies. This all applies to real estate because today nearly 1 in 6 rental properties are owned by LLCs. And that matters. LLCs make housing more expensive and worse.
There used to at least be a consistent relationship between a human and a human.
That's New York State Assembly member Emily Gallagher, a key advocate in the fight for fair housing.
But
Landlords cannot be within 50 yards of tenants or they'll give them a rash. That is true. I don't want the land chads to have to hang out with the riffraff. You know what I'm saying? They could get dirt on their coat or their nice furs. Well, I think we have to be fair here. So true. These rentoids are full of diseases. Yeah, 100%.
when someone has anonymity to hide behind, they actually feel much more relaxed about not doing things for their tenants.
This happened to me and Ari. We lived in a pretty nice apartment in San Jose when I was at NVIDIA. The entire complex got bought by Graystar LLC, which buys up hundreds of these a year. They're a huge conglomerate of rental properties. And all of the nice little quality of life things instantly got cut. And they stopped doing quick maintenance. They just started stripping the place bare. I mean, like just obviously running it for max profit, instead of like trying to build a reputation or a brand as a good place.
Have a shield, and behind that shield, they feel safe. I don't think there's ever been like a good old day of housing. There's always been bad landlords and there's always been crappy buildings. But with consolidation, it really becomes a system where buildings are treated like stocks and bonds. They're not seen as housing. They're not seen as places for people to have shelter or to build a family. They're seen as things to buy and sell and trade.
Landlords claim that people have flooded back to cities. However, other investigative reports show that this just isn't true. The same way inflation is the story about corporate greed, rising rents.
Hyper Dumpy says, hey, not all landlords and the fist. Hey, rentoids. Not all landlords, okay? I just call you renters because you're my friends, really. Don't come near me, but you're my friends. I only raise rates by 10%, plus I include a 15% mandatory tip. What a hero. Because that feels better for the tenant. You know what I'm saying? Yes, it's the same 25% increase, but 15% of it goes directly to you. A-tab, all tenants are bad. A-tab.
Or also a story of price fixing.
Just look at Dorca's building. When a number of her neighbors had to move out because they were facing the same sort of drastic rent increase that she got, well, her landlord did something surprising. He just left all of those apartments empty. Her building has 63 apartments, but only 18 are currently occupied.
Interesting.
Each floor, except the ground floor, has 6 units. On mine, as is the average, there's only 2 units occupied. The one directly next to me on the right is vacant. When I come in the building at night, if I have to stand here as I open the door, there's always that anxiety because the door, it's just open and it's really dark in here at night. Like, you just never know who could be in there and grab you and hurt you.
Very creepy to walk around the floor and just knowing that all of these units, they're completely unlocked.
These units have been empty, some of them upwards close to 20 years.
Interesting.
If you are so pressed for profit, why leave them vacant?
In
Tell me
2022,
more.
New York City landlords warehoused 60,000 rent-stabilized apartments, which just means that they refused to rent them out because they didn't want to flood the market with those normal rent prices. Ultimately, with legal loopholes and deregulation, landlords have a lot of power, and they use that power to accumulate
Interesting.
more.
Just artificially restricting supply so you can fucking upcharge. That's crazy. We need a landlord president, TBH. I feel like we've only had landlord presidents. Chicago recently increased taxes on empty buildings to directly fight this. Yeah, I think there's got to be a solution, a pretty obvious one where it just doesn't make economical sense. Just property taxes on buildings would make this a real problem because buying a building and then not being able to fully rent it out is going to leave you unable to pay the debt on the use to buy the building. I don't think landlording should be a high margin business. It should be something where you're making like 10, 15% on the top. That's it. And if it's not, that means there's problems. There's structural problems. All these rentoids do is complain. I saw them buying groceries the other day. It's They complain about raising rents, but then they literally buy food. Do you know what I'm saying? Make up your mind. Do you have no money or do you?
Honestly, when we started looking into this, I realized that landlords actually have a lot of solidarity with each other.
ProPublica put this report out that landlords, like major landlords across the country, have been using this thing called RealPage, where they're basically price fixing. Like they're able to go in there and an algorithm can show them like how much they could charge based on what other landlords are charging.
RealPage is like a third party, but how third party is it if all the landlords are using it and they're all using it to essentially collude on rent increases?
Collusion's a good word. That's exactly what it is.
So how do you even go about fighting a machine like this? Well, we took a stab at it.
We wrote back to them and we cited the 2019 laws, which entitle tenants in New York, if you live there for, like we were for 2 years, at least 90 days notice. They said that we had cited legal code and they gave us 90 days to get out. No negotiations. They sent us this notice of non-renewal in certified mail and first class mail. They emailed it to us. They also sent a courier, a kid who came and knocked on the door and my wife answered and he served her the papers telling us to get out.
That seems like clear retaliation, right? They gave you an illegal amount of notice, you spoke up and they said get out.
We were surprised that everyone told us basically like you can't even fight back on retaliation because landlords have this thing that they're not supposed to do, but they do called a tenant blacklist, which means that if you do go up against them, I mean, they have all the resources. If you do wind up in eviction court, your name is going to be there forever, and now you're blacklisted as a tenant.
Dorka faced the pressures of eviction court firsthand.
It's incredibly fucked up. And that's another big problem with consolidation. If there are like 6 or 7 major players in the landlord business, it's very easy for them to collude. If there's 6,000, 7,000, or if there's 10,000 per city, then it's very difficult. And then you actually get actual price discovery. The problem is just the endless consolidation of everything into a few fucking monopolies. When it's just 1 or 2, they can easily collude.
When a family member of hers passed away and she fell behind in her rent payments.
The fear and the impotence you feel, like when I showed up to court, I was completely alone in this courtroom. When you're there and you know that they have everything on their side and you're nobody. You know what I mean? It's a lot. I think someone from DSA, I can't even remember who, put me in contact with a lawyer that was doing pro bono stuff and he's still helping us out. And he showed up for me. I cannot begin to tell you the relief. I was clueless when it came to any tenants' rights.
Despite not having any experience, Dorka took a bold step and started organizing other tenants in the building who were going through similar experiences.
People get really scared with these things, so they didn't want to join at first. But once we started banding together and the landlord knew that we were organizing, he backed off.
Dorka told me that after the pro bono attorney got involved, her landlord backed off of her non-payment case. And after she and her neighbors banded together, he hasn't increased the rent on them in a few years. But it wasn't enough to save her building's community. As I mentioned earlier, there's 2 bills in New York State that could actually help tenants. One of them is specifically about LLCs. Emily Gallagher is its lead sponsor.
The LLC Transparency Act is a bill that would require limited liability corporations to file a document that says all of the people who are beneficial owners for that LLC. To have a human that you can target with anything from a request to a lawsuit is...
I don't love the idea of like people picking a random name from an LLC document and making it their target. I mean, I just would love if they would fucking break up these big monopolies, change zoning laws so new stuff can get built, introduce competition in the market, check regularly to see if like are landlords able to keep gouging customers. If so, we're doing something wrong. Land value tax? Yeah, land value tax would be good too. Anything to reduce people just inheriting or buying a property fucking 40 years ago and it was cheap, then sitting on it at pure profit, charging whatever they want. And there's zero risk on their side, zero need for upkeep on their side, zero need to... I see why they'd want to do this, but this is, again, it just comes down to like the random targeting, name and shame kind of thing. And even if this law passed, I mean, they would find other, layers of this where they could hire someone. They could hire a fucking professional person to put their name on the thing and be the face of it, that it has a pass-through company or something. This law doesn't feel very helpful. I guess it's a start. I mean, you should be able to know the public CEO of the company who owns your fucking building. There should be someone you can talk to, yes, but...
is really critical. So much of our law is based upon interaction with another person.
My landlord situation is actually pretty different. I'm in the second floor of a house, and he lives right below me, so when I have a problem, he actually fixes it. When my pipes leak, like, he actually has incentive to fix it because it'll leak into his house.
The second bill would provide even more tenant protections.
It's called good cause eviction, and it basically does two things for tenants. One, it gives you the right to remain. So that means every year or every 2 years, your lease, you can renew it. Because right now, a landlord can say you have to get out of here in 90 days when your lease is up. The other thing it would do, it would put a cap on how much they can raise the rent every year. So that would be like a universal rent stabilization bill. The city used to be full of rent stabilized apartments, but they've slowly been deregulated over the years. There's a few states that have laws about this, like California has one. We did a video a couple months ago about St. Paul, Minnesota, where tenants got a 3% rent increase cap.
Like even in New Jersey, literally the state right next to us, they have some form of rent control.
The LLC Transparency Act and Good Cause Eviction Bill have both faced tremendous uphill battles against the real estate lobby, and if they pass,
that title.
Bill have both faced tremendous uphill.
Landlords wage crusade against good cause anti-eviction bill. The landlords crusade. Listen, I don't want to get too into it because I don't think I can explain the nuance of it. I'm not a huge fan of price caps and rent controls and things. They only help people who are currently in apartments. But if you're a young person who moves to the city, you're almost even more locked out of housing. They're very band-aid solutions. You just assume that the participants in the market are both greedy and they will find a way. And there will be unintended negative consequences. My favorite primal example is of just bad incentives. Great Britain, when they owned India, wanted to get rid of all cobras. So they put out a bounty paying, 10-pound shilling for a cobra head. And the amount of cobras in the population tripled because people started breeding cobras. But housing shouldn't be a market at all. Interesting. I do think homelessness is a crisis and housing should be a right. But I am trying to regulate that in my mind with like, people don't want to buy a house sometimes. They do want to rent. Renting serves a purpose. It's the same thing as buying a fucking car. I mean, it serves a need. People want a place where they can have it temporary for a month to a year and then move to a different job somewhere else. There's a benefit to it. It's just when the market gets out of whack and some people have too much power in it, they abuse the other side of that trade. And I don't think I have off the top of my head the solution, but a great example is like California they capped property taxes because people didn't want to get forced out of their homes. And they tell you a story of like, there's an old lady and she's lived in this house for 40 years and the property taxes are going up and she can't afford it. She could be forced out of her home. And it's like, damn, I don't want that. We should cap it. So they capped it and stopped the increase. And then what happened over the next 30 years is like all of the boomers who were there when the property cap tax happened ended up incredibly wealthy owning these fucking houses that never got to appreciate. And everyone young or new moved to the state couldn't get a house. Are there any countries that are doing it the right thing that Americans might get some ideas from? I wonder. I know that Canada isn't. I know that Canadian real estate is even worse than America. I mean, if I was just randomly guessing, I would say probably the fucking Nordics. The Nordics always seem to have it right. The fucking Nordic fucking smarmy ass fucks always seem to have like most things figured out. Austria and Singapore are commonly cited examples. Interesting. I'll have to look more into it. We can just take a look right now. Well, I'm interested. What countries have the best housing? Wow, South Korea is the #1 country in housing affordability. That's interesting. Estonia, Hungary, Russia, Mexico. Average rent to salary ratio by country. That's what I'm interested in. U.S. ranks poorly in housing affordability among advanced countries. Among the poorest renters, the U.S. fares the worst of all developed nations. Yikes. Among renters with the lowest income, the median renter spends 74% of their income on housing in the United States. That's fucking crazy. In France, it's 30%. Wow. Oh, here we go. Here's a good map. Average incomes and rents by countries and rent as a percentage of income. The United States is the highest in the world where rent, so over half of your income goes to rent in the United States on average. That's fucking crazy. Look at Brazil, 18%, Russia, 20%, all of Europe, 22, yeah. China, shockingly high too. I'm surprised. NZ, pretty high, 40.8. One of the few orange ones. What I'm taking away from this, though, is that USA's #1, baby. USA! 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 Look how we stand out, bro. Everyone else in this fucking green, boring, the same. And we, look at us. The only real orange one on this whole fucking map. Us in Somalia. Bro, it's us in Somalia, the big two, bro. I always knew there was one country in Africa that could fucking keep up with us, and that's Somalia, baby. The dynamic duo. What's crazy is, like average wages in the EU are lower pretty significantly to America. I mean, America has many ways that money gets taken from you, but wages are higher in America. And so, like, this is a low percent of a lower base. So the actual rent is pretty low. Like, the raw rent number is pretty low. That's pretty crazy. Only sad for rentoids. Yeah, I mean, the solution is for us all to become landlords. For every single person to become a landlording corporation. What if we make a society where everyone is a landlord for one other person? So nobody owns their own house, but you own someone else's houses. So if your landlord's mean to you, you can take it out on someone else. So at least you can pass it on, you know? It's like dominoes. So like if fucking Jeff Bezos tries to raise someone's rent, just know eventually it might get back to him. I was watching that video, sorry. And then I want to play Hitman.
Battles against the real estate lobby, and if they pass, there'll be huge wins for tenants. Other states could follow. Tenant movements across the country are mobilizing for change. Housing is more unaffordable than ever, and we need to shift the leverage back to our side. But wait, one last thing. My story's not over yet. After a number of back and forths with my landlord's middlemen, I was eventually forced to move out of my home of 2 years. I know that I'm among the luckier tenants in this sort of story. My wife and I have a dual income home with stability and savings, and even for us it was a huge waste of time, money, and resources. We're still unpacking, but a few weeks after we moved, we did get a message. Eric, the guy who we had been paying our rent to but wasn't on any of the property documents, emailed us for the first time in our entire tenancy. He wrote to us to let us know that he wasn't going to give us back our full security deposit, even though we left the place spotless. Well, at least I finally know who my landlord is.
Bro, security deposits are such a fucking broken system. I've been frustrated with them so many times. It's just their discretion. And so it's just asking a landlord, do you want to be greedy or not? And it's like, what are they going to say? I go into it assuming it's sunk cost. Yeah, me too now. But as a fucking younger person, when I fucking needed the money, it was frustrating. I remember I moved out of this place called Gateway, which is near ASU. When I lived off campus, and I actually fucking put effort, time, and money into cleaning that place because I wanted the deposit back because I needed it as part of my move to go write about League of Legends in California. Like I specifically needed the money, and I was like, I gotta get this. And we cleaned that place, and I didn't get fucking shit all back. I was so mad. I should have just left it like shit. Like I've wasted so much time. See the apartment with black mold? I can't wait to be fucking thrown in jail because I tried to pull a prank on my fucking landlord. Age fucking 22, trying to start my life. offer a walkthrough of the unit constituting a full review of anything. Yeah, I know that there's ways to like really fucking legally protect yourself, but I didn't do them, right? As a 22-year-old or a 20, fucking 19-year-old. I played a lot of League of Legends, actually, to be honest with you. I played League of Legends. One thing I do remember, though, is when me and my roommate, who I ended up having a falling out with, but when we first signed up for this place at Gateway, because we wanted to play League of Legends all year, and we just found this place to fucking grind, they had promised us we would get one of the new renovated rooms with hardwood floors, which means less cleaning. And then the day of move-in, they put us in a place that had fucking carpet. And I knew immediately, if I live in this place, we're going to have a spill or something, and we're not going to get it out. It's going to fucking suck. I was really mad. And I asked them about it. I was like, hey, this isn't fair. And they said, sorry, nothing you can do about it. And then my fucking dad, 6'3" military guy with the buzz cut, didn't yell, but very fucking ice cold, looked him in the eye, firmly said, I have this email from you guys to my son, and it mentions hardwood floor. And then he's like, can you walk with me? And then he walked all the way to the fucking, and I'm just sitting there behind him like, yeah, Dad, go. Walks him all the way to the fucking apartment room that we were in, and he points at the floor, and he's like, look at this carpet. Does this look like hardwood floors? And he's like, puts his foot on it. Doesn't look like it to me. And I got the hardwood floors. They fucking waffled for a bit. They tried not to say anything. But eventually, we come back in like a few days, and they found us. They email us, hey, we found one. Turns out there was one more renovated one, and they got it for us. Honestly, in my entire life, that is one of the coolest things my dad's ever done. Because I actually had been wronged. And I actually tried, and they did not give it to me. And then my dad came in and fucking got it. It was sick. The squeaky wheel gets greased? Yeah, I think that's what it was. I think they figured I would give up, and I would have. Because my dad came in and made it more of a hassle, they just figured there might be more trouble down the road, and they might as well just give me one. They kicked out a family for me? Yes, they did. So it was great. So as we were entering the apartment, I saw them kick out a single mother and her 8 kids from the house. They just booted them onto the street, and they said, right here for your League of Legends, sir. And they put a little table for me to play League of Legends on. It was awesome. No, there was no families in fucking Gateway. It was all college kids.
Had to do was get kicked out. But we want to know, are you facing a rent increase? Are you trying to find out who your landlord?
Yo, must be nice to have a dad. Bro, you are like a Twitter user. There's nothing I can say that you won't find some reason to fucking shame me for it. I'm sorry if you don't have a dad, but I can't tell a story. That's so stupid, dude. Yeah, it's the I hate waffles thing. It's like if I say I like pancakes, oh, you hate waffles then. Oh, you're a waffle hater. No, I just like pancakes. That was a good video.
It is. Well, we included some links to Tenant resources in the description below. Thank you for watching The Classroom.
I won't look at those, but I will complain. Does that count? Parents really are the biggest landlords if you think about it. No, that's not true. That's a stupid statement and not based in fact.